Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to Uncancelled on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. I'm your humble host, Kevin Kietzman, and we got a great show lined up for you today. Celebrating the first 100 days of the Trump presidency is how we'll get things started. Amazon making a move that seems a little different than what they've been doing between Bezos and Trump. Pete talked about that a little while ago. Cary Hall will be here today. Cary Hall is the host of America's Healthcare Advocate on KCMO Talk Radio every Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. His website is americashealthcareadvocate.com, but he is not just an expert in healthcare, of which he's been in the field for decades now. He's also a Vietnam veteran, a former police officer, and he's got a lot of great opinions about a lot of things. So just know that coming in. We're going to have a great discussion today with Cary, as you'll get to know him a little bit. Of course, we always finish the show up talking with Mark. And we will be looking in Mark's garage later today to find out if he has a golf cart in there. You don't have a golf cart in your garage, do you?
I don't right now.
Well, there's
Do
a
I need
couple.
to get one?
There's a couple that are missing, and they're trying to figure out who has them.
Not me.
So we'll get to that a little bit later on as well. We start today with 100 days of Donald Trump, and there's been so many great things that have happened that we've all enjoyed. Not the least of which is closing the border, deporting criminal aliens. Making America safer. Big tech basically doing a 180, and why they did it, I don't know. But big tech's done a giant 180 with Trump and said, we're going to get along. We're not going to have these algorithms. The things that we've been caught doing in the past, we're not going to do. There's so many wins and so many good things going on. We have seen lower gas prices, lower grocery prices. We've seen things as simple as, Pride Month is coming up. I don't know if anybody's seen this. The Pride Month, folks, all the giant organizations around the country are complaining that their money's been cut off. Like organizations everywhere, like we're not funding Pride Month anymore. The highest profile of all these is Anheuser-Busch in St. Louis. 30 years in a row, they have donated money and supported Pride Month, and they are not doing it this year. They're not alone. It's big companies like Comcast, which is also a media conglomerate. People are saying, look, we used to throw money away at things because we thought we had to. And we realized the things we were throwing our money away to weren't bringing any money back. It would be like me. I'm a podcast host, right? Kevin Kietzman has issues. If I went out and started donating to illegal alien defense funds, wouldn't make a hell of a lot of sense for me doing my podcast, would it? It may make people on the left think that I've got a big heart and I'm a generous guy and doing nice things, but it makes no sense. I wouldn't advertise my podcast, even though we do sports and politics and news on there, during an NBA game, because NBA fans are not my audience. I wouldn't be, taking knees with LeBron James when George Floyd is in trouble and things of this nature. It just doesn't make sense. But everybody in this country was running around and doing that. Trump has reversed that. To me, the biggest win of Donald Trump over the first 100 days is stopping the bleeding first and understanding that a lot of the good things that are going to come will be a trickle. If you take one thing away from today's monologue, it's this. 100 days is nothing. Everybody in the media is going to try to portray this as this is the end for Trump, okay, especially on the left. Here comes Amazon after him. Here comes this. He's got this problem. People don't like tariffs. We're looking at polling. Negative, negative, negative. 100 days is like 1/15th of the presidency. Isn't it about 1,500 days in a presidency? Something around that number. And so this is absolutely nothing. You stop the bleeding first. No matter what happens in life, when something bad is going on, you have to stop the bad before you can do the good. If you have a broken toilet and it's flooding out onto the floor, before you can fix it and put a new toilet in, you have to turn the water off. You got to stop the mess. It's the same thing in anything. It's the same thing in sports. I covered sports forever. And people said, why do coaches put so much emphasis on defense in every sport? I said, because you've got to stop the problem, and the problem is the other team scoring. In any game, any sport, you got to stop that first before you can worry about how you're going to go score more. It's the same thing in the Trump administration, and I think he's going to do that. Now, this will get a lot of attention. This Amazon tariff policy will get a lot of attention. And it was kind of a shocker to me because we all thought Jeff Bezos was settling into a routine of saying, I'm going to stay out of this. He has angered people at the entities that he owns on the left in a big way by becoming friends with Trump, by dining at Mar-a-Lago, by changing the policies of the Washington Post, which he owns, from being an advocate to something for basically saying, we're going to go and find stories wherever it takes us about personal freedom and liberty. That's the Washington Post's mission. Personal freedom and liberty. It's no longer we're anti-Trump or we're Republican or Democrat. We want content from our editorial board and our news operation about personal freedom and liberty. And what I liked about that when Bezos said that was, that to me isn't Democrat or Republican. Imagine you're part of the Pride community. I would think that your personal freedom and your liberties would be very important to you. This audience, me personally, conservatives as a whole, is pretty much all we think about is personal freedoms and liberty. We don't want the government intruding in our lives. We want them away from us. They're a necessary evil to provide military, build roads, do certain things. But for the most part, I think everybody listening to this show, or every conservative listening to this show, there's members of the Kansas City media that listen every day, and we know you're liberal. But the people that listen to this show because they like what you hear and what guests have to say and the things that we talk about here, we're in agreement. We're in agreement over what this needs to be. The government needs to be smaller. Trump is working on that. We love what they've done with Doge. So when Bezos did this and ticked everybody off on the left, this has been several months ago, I was thinking to myself, well, what's he going to do to get back in the good graces of the people on the left? And maybe this is it. And it doesn't seem a coincidence that Bezos busted out his tariff policy on Amazon, which essentially is going to say on Amazon, here's how much of what you're paying is because of a tariff. They're going to add it up like you would on a sales receipt, like a sales tax. It will show right there, you were tariffed 10% on this product. Or if it's from China, 240% or whatever the heck it is. Then it's your choice whether to buy it or not. It's day 100, and it's clearly to feed something to his people on the left that watch me poke Trump with a stick. Most of these tariffs are insignificant. I'll disagree with Pete a little bit. He said 98% of the people have the app. I just asked 4 guys right here in the hallway, and none of us have the app. This is a female operation. All right, I'm going to get into real trouble here, which I don't mind doing, and I'm not trying to offend any of the ladies in the audience, I swear. Women talk about relationships. They talk about men. They talk about stuff dudes don't talk about. When guys get together, we're the most shallow humans on earth. Like, we talk about Bobby Witt Jr.'s hitting streak, okay? That's what we talk about. Or, did you see what Trump said? That's what dudes do. Or, do you like this kind of beer or this kind of beer? That's what guys talk about. We really don't talk about our wives that much. When it comes up, it's never the stuff the ladies talk about with their husband. Never. So I'll say a half a dozen friends that I'm really tight with, that we've occasionally talked about our wives. The one complaint every guy I know has is their wife is addicted to Amazon and crap shows up every single day and it's too much money going out the door. The single biggest conflict in marriages in the United States of America is money. It always has been. Amazon, I'm going to give you, this is a hot take now. Amazon for women is a far more addictive drug than sports gambling for men. It is not close. It is nonstop. It's, I don't feel good. I'm having a bad day. Where the hell's my phone? I got to order something. Oh my God, it's coming in 3 hours. It'll be here this afternoon. I'm so excited. And it's one thing after another. How this became our culture and how an app and a device on your phone to just blow money on stuff that you don't need. We're a nation filled with hoarders, and the numbers are growing. We're buying crap that we don't need. A lot of it's from China. Put the tariff on there. Great. Maybe buy less of this junk. Because when you really need something, when something's important, are you really buying your car on Amazon? No. You want to go see it, don't you? Maybe drive it. Make sure the tires are okay. How about your washer and dryer break? Or some big appliance? Or the sofa you're going to sit on and watch movies and football games? Do you really want to order that and have it sent to your doorstep and try to assemble it and do all that? No. Important things, you don't do this. By definition, Amazon is crap. It's stuff you don't need. I don't need another golf shirt. Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate you buying this for me. I don't need it. If I need another golf shirt, I'd buy one. I don't need it. So I don't know what the tariff means. I think it's designed to hurt Trump. it obviously Amazon's thought this through. It's not going to hurt Amazon, or they would have said, no, we're not doing this. They wouldn't be doing this if it's going to hurt them. So I don't think they think it's going to hurt their sales in any way. If the price is too high, you're going to find the same trinket for a lower price, right? From a different country? Is that what's going on? I don't know. Or is Amazon going to jack prices up and call it tariffs and make more of a profit? I say anything's possible. But you're not going to ruin my first 100 days of Trump by pulling this stunt today. It's not going to bother me. I not only don't have the app, I've never bought a thing on Amazon. I've been the recipient of things that my wife has bought on Amazon. She just bought 12 clips, not chip clips, they're pool clips. They go on your pool towel this summer when the wind's blowing so it doesn't blow away. She's bought 12 of them for like $10.99. So you're telling me if there's a 10% tariff on that junk made in Vietnam, now it's $11.99 and she's not going to buy it? Let's do the tariffs. And let's see if the women want to keep buying the junk. Keep it coming to the house. 1 tube of lipstick. You guys had this happen yet? Have you had this happen? Jessica, I'm not picking on you. You're not unique in any way. What's this little package? Oh, it's out of my lip gloss. What? What? I mean, go for it. I don't understand Amazon. My generation was the mall. We were mall kids, man. Oak Park Mall, hang out. There were actually interactions with girls at the mall. Like we spoke to other humans. Sometimes we'd buy something in a store, but mostly we were just hanging out at the mall, right?
They opened the Great Mall of the Great Plains when I was in high school.
There you
So that
go.
was fun in Olathe.
And you went with your buddies and there were girls everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
The food court was like nightclubs for 15-year-olds.
We had a movie theater there. It was fun.
Of course. And they don't do that now. Amazon, I'm not a huge fan. It's not my thing. I understand why people are addicted. I get it. We're all addicted in our own way to devices. I'm an info hound. I get info I'm on my phone too much, and it's usually information. But I'm not worried about Jeff Bezos doing this. He's not going to hurt himself, and he ain't going to hurt Trump. Let's not overreact. And we stopped the bleeding, and I'm celebrating 100 days. All right, we come back. Cary Hall is going to join us. He's America's healthcare advocate. He's part of the HIA radio network and podcast. You can hear America's healthcare advocate right here on KCMO Talk Radio every Saturday morning, 8 o'clock. We'll talk a little bit about transitioning from Vietnam to being a police officer to a healthcare executive and now a podcast and radio host. It's been a full life. This is going to be fun. He's got a lot of great opinions. You'll like that next on Uncancelled. This is KCMO Talk Radio, and I want to talk about our good friends at bestofferkc.com. We talked a little bit about Mark Delatour and his business yesterday on the podcast, and you know now, probably from hearing us talk about it, that selling with a realtor isn't the only way to sell a house. What may be best for one isn't best for another. 10% or more of the houses in Kansas City sell off market. Sometimes it's folks with a distressed property, but other times it's people in a bit of a jam, whether it's a personal situation or a medical issue that you have, or you've inherited a house, or it's filled with clutter and you don't know how to clean it out, but you need to move and you're moving across the country to live with a relative or something of that nature. This is no repairs, no fees, no showing, no realtors, and no hassle. That's really what this is all about with bestofferkc.com. If you'd like to learn more, go to their website, bestofferkc.com, or call 816-338-SOLD. That's 816-338-SOLD, and it doesn't have to be a hassle. You can get a free, no-obligation assessment by calling 816-338-SOLD or log on to bestofferkc.com. Now, they're really different at Best Offer. They don't think your house is ugly. They are not judging anything or anyone's situation. Mark really is a compassionate guy that wants to help people. Did you know some of the others in this industry are wholesalers and they can offer you money and within 30 days they can pull their offer? BestOfferKC.com has never reneged on an offer. The price that they give you is gold. It doesn't change. It's there and it's good. Sometimes they even lend you money before it's closed to help you get moving costs. Best Offer KC does it differently. They're helping you leave the hassle behind, one family at a time at bestofferkc.com.
From the nation's heartland, it's Kevin Kietzman Uncancelled on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.
Well, we're pleased to have in studio with us today Cary Hall. He's with America's Healthcare Advocate. Well, he is America's Healthcare Advocate on the HIA Radio Network and podcast, americashealthcareadvocate.com, Saturdays 8 a.m. right here on KCMO Talk Radio. What an interesting life he has had, from military service, police officer, healthcare company owner and executive, and now radio broadcaster and podcaster. Cary Hall, welcome to Uncancelled. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. How are you, sir?
Okay, what's left? What else can you do other than all those things?
I don't know. I'm 75 years old, and my daughters like to tease me when they say, Dad, you're never going to retire, so quit telling people that's going to happen, because it's not.
Right? So but you got another business you're going to start at some point, I guess. Would you say you're a serial entrepreneur?
Probably to some degree. We have my newest business is Datego Health, which we've had for about 5 years now. Now, we will sell that at some point. But after that, I think I'm going to hang up the saddle and just do radio. I love the radio stuff I do, very much like you. You know, you said it gets in your blood. I listened to you one morning talk about this, and there's a lot of truth in that. I really enjoy doing those shows, and I have a variety of people on, and we talk about a lot of different things, so I really enjoy the radio world.
We've gotten to know each other over the last several weeks or months, I guess, as you do all your recording right here in the studios at KCMO in Cumulus, Kansas City. So I'd see you here, and then you were very kind to say, hey, I just wanted to say hi. I like your show. I listened to a sports show back in the day. That's very flattering. I appreciate that. And the work you're doing is fantastic. Tell me a little bit about your show and the podcast and what it is that you try to help people do.
Well, the biggest problem people have with healthcare, whether it's health insurance or whether it's issues around health, is really understanding it. In healthcare, it's understanding how to navigate the labyrinth of government regulations and where do you look for product and who has the best product and, what should I buy and where am I going to get the best service and the whole 9 yards. So we try to talk about a lot of that. I mean, you can, for example, you're going to see some big changes coming to ACA Obamacare next year. You're going to see the open enrollment period drop down it's going to go from November 1st to December 15th. Now, it has been running to January 15th because Obama widened it. Trump's going to narrow it. Okay. You're also going to see a significant issue with look back on people that have gotten subsidies. So in the past, you're supposed to have the IRS looking back to make sure that people's tax returns match up to the subsidy they're getting. That has not gone on.
Really?
That is going to change. Yeah. So
will that be computerized? Is that something like Elon Musk is working on?
Well, here's what it says. CMS proposes change to strengthen the verification process for income eligibility by removing the requirement that marketplaces accept an enrollee's self-assertion, meaning in the past you were able to say, I'm projecting I'm going to make this many dollars, therefore I'm going to get this subsidy. Well, that's going to change now. They're going to go back and they're going to check, number one, for a 2-year period, not a 1-year period, the subsidy. Number two, when you apply, you're going to have a document, your tax return or something like that says, this is actually what I make.
Okay, so as a rule, let's say a dude's listening right now, is 45 years old, married, got a couple of teenage kids at home, and has a good job and does all his health care through his employer. Is an employee health care plan always the best way, or are there other options? Should people look outside their employer?
Well, first of all, it's not always the best way, but here's the thing. If you are offered a plan through your employer, you cannot apply for an ACA plan. Right. So therein is the issue. If you're offered an employer-sponsored health plan, you cannot step out of that and decide, I think I want to go buy an ACA plan because I'm going to get a subsidy over here, whatever the case may be. You can't do that. But so the subsidies work at 400% of the poverty level and down. Okay. So up to that much. So a household of two, $78,120, you get a subsidy. Household of four, $117,720 you can earn and still receive a subsidy. Some of those subsidies are as high as 90%. Or 100% of the premium, depending on how they're calculated.
If a husband and wife both have jobs and careers with healthcare, how many people are on each individually with their company, and how many should be together? How do people know what to do? Because so many companies don't have somebody that really helps you sort through what the right thing to do is. What should they do?
That's a great question. So my daughter is an attorney in Pasco, Washington, a very smart young lady, obviously. just got her health plan for a new law firm she went to work for, and her husband got his health plan from the company he works for. And she sent them both to me and said, Dad, tell me, what am I supposed to do here? Okay, and I looked at the plans, and I recommended one of the Blue Cross plans because the benefits and the cost matched up to be the best plan. What people often do, unfortunately, is they look at the bottom line. They always shop for the cheapest price. Well, the problem with that is you may have gotten the cheapest price, but you could have picked the worst product in the marketplace. And that's where people make a lot of mistakes. So what we try to do is educate and inform.
All right, so I want to ask you this. I heard today there's a new prime minister coming in Canada, and one of his big things is he's going to try to do something to stop the doctor flow from Canada into the United States. All we do is complain about our health care here, but apparently it's pretty good. Everybody seems to want to come to America to have something done. How good is our health care, and what needs to be improved? We got about a minute left in this segment.
Well, so I'll give you a little story that you'll find enjoyable. The Cleveland Clinic is one of the best hospitals in the world, okay? When the royal Saudi Crown Prince comes to the United States for heart surgery or any type of procedure, they take an entire floor of the hospital. And so, and back in the day, before we had Obamacare, we had people in Canada who had dual policies in the United States so that if their wife got cancer or they got cancer, they could come to the United States and get treatment.
So we're doing pretty well. We just like to complain about it.
That's exactly
and
right.
The cost is
the
high
cost,
as well.
The cost is always an issue.
Yeah, no doubt. Cary Hall is here. He's America's healthcare advocate. We got more coming up. Very interesting guy. He's been in the military. He's got some very serious comments about police in Kansas City, Missouri. We'll do that next on KCMO.
From Leawood to Liberty, it's Kevin Kietzman Uncancelled on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
Cary Hall is with us. He's America's healthcare advocate, part of the HIA Radio Network and podcast. AmericasHealthcareAdvocate.com is the website. That's AmericasHealthcareAdvocate.com. You can hear him Saturdays at 8 right here on KCMO Talk Radio. And we talked about your previous life before starting your healthcare companies and being in that field. You were in the military in Vietnam, is that right?
Yeah, I was a patrol dog handler. Yes,
Volunteered and signed up.
I
and went?
volunteered, and then I volunteered to go to Vietnam. Probably not the smartest thing I ever did, but
And how rare was that? People weren't doing that, were they?
no, there were only 5,000 military working dog handlers in Vietnam and 4,000 dogs over the period of the war. So we were a pretty select group.
How many young men signed up to go?
Well, in my outfit, there were 36 of us, and every one of us signed up to go.
Okay.
Yeah, we
So-
had a choice. I had a choice between embassy duty in Ankara, Turkey, and Vietnam.
Well,
Like I said, it probably wasn't the smartest move I
choice
ever
you
made,
Okay,
right?
good.
Yeah.
And then after that, you wound up serving as a police officer, military police?
Yeah,
then
so
police?
I was stationed at Andrews Air Force Base, now Joint Base Andrews, and part of the military police unit there, and that was the MOS for dog handlers. And I was part of the military police unit there, and we had a big canine unit on the base. And as a result of that, I got involved in a thing called the United States Police Canine Competition through my Sergeant Cunningham, Master Sergeant, who ran our kennel in our squadron. And we did pretty well. We placed 13th overall with my dog Hugo when we competed one year, which was the highest ranking that an Air Force dog handler had ever placed. And so I started being recruited by all these police departments. So D.C. Police Department, Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Fairfax County, and it was kind of a lay of the land. And I went on PG County and became a police officer there. And so
Okay.
it was a different life.
And how'd you get to Kansas City from there?
Well, I went to California, became a police officer there in Orange County, California, and then moved out of police work and started becoming an entrepreneur. And then when I sold my company in California, my wife wanted to move back here. She was a California girl, grew up there, went to Hollywood High. And we came back to Kansas City. And at the time, I thought, I don't know about this. And it turned out to be the best thing I ever did.
And you lived in Kansas City, Missouri for quite some time until what happened?
Well, so we lived in Brookside. When we came back here, we loved the Brookside area. It was a beautiful area, the historical significance, all the rest of it, great shopping, restaurants. And we'd been there for, I think, my wife tells me we were there for about 22 years, I think. And we were happy. We liked where we lived. There were some challenges with living in Brookside. There were a lot of car thefts. My next door neighbor was broken into on two different occasions. On one occasion, there was a man with a gun sitting in the window well of outside their home. When my neighbor saw him, called the police, and then we had a large response from the police department. And neighbor across the street was broken into once or twice. So those kind of things happened. But after the George Floyd mostly peaceful protests / riots on the plaza, where I sat up in my living room until 3:30 in the morning waiting to see what was going to happen if they were going to come marching up Brookside Boulevard. We were one block off Brookside Boulevard. I got up the next morning and I told my wife, I said, I think we need to get out of here. I think things are deteriorating. And I really don't want to be the guy that walks out in front of an angry mob, with a weapon in his hands and winds up on the 6 o'clock news like the guy in St. Louis,
Right.
Who wound up being prosecuted, by the way.
Right.
And I thought, I've done a lot, Vietnam, police work, all the rest of it. And the writing's on the wall. I want to get out of here. And we did. And we put the house up for sale. We were very fortunate, sold it, and we moved out to Chapel Hill, out by the Arboretum, and I could not be happier.
Are there more crazy people out there today than when you started in police work? And by crazy, I mean like maybe technically crazy, either on drugs crazy or mental illness problems. This firefighter that was stabbed this past weekend and died and lost his life. I cannot get past that story. I just can't even believe it. Now, that's not a police officer, but it's a firefighter. And they're trying to help this woman, and she's apparently got a knife on her, and they don't know, and he gets stabbed, and he dies. But we see tragic stories with police officers and stuff. Do they have the resources? Do they have what they need in Kansas City, Missouri? Do we have more nutty people walking around than we used to? What are your thoughts on where we are?
Well, yeah, you can. It's not hard to figure this out. Go drive around downtown Kansas City, okay, or even drive around on the plaza area in a lot of cases, and you see these people out there. They're homeless. They're on drugs. They have their little signs, or maybe they don't even have signs. And the problem, when I did this back in the 70s, there were tools that you had. You could incarcerate somebody, and then they could be put into a facility and held. If they had if it was determined they had a very serious mental illness. You can't do that anymore. I think they're released within 72 hours. If you actually can get them into a facility, you can't keep them there if they choose not to stay. So what's happened is you've taken away the tools that the police officers had, and then on top of that, you've got district attorneys, prosecuting attorneys who don't want to prosecute. So it's a revolving door. The police officers go out, they arrest these people, they put them in jail, and 24 hours later, 48 hours later, they're back on the streets again. So how many times had that woman been arrested, Kevin?
Right. Yeah, she'd done a couple of wild things,
Yeah.
clearly. She was involved in a hit and run. She left that. And, I mean, that alone, okay, that's a pretty serious crime. Then she gets into it with an officer and bites him, which you said is one of the biggest nightmares for a police
scares
officer.
the Dallas because hepatitis C is we were always concerned when we would make an arrest, especially of a female, that if they were to bite you, you wound up with a good chance of getting hep C. And back in the day, there was no cure for hepatitis C. There is now, but there wasn't then.
So I'm no genius, all right, at these things, but I'm a kind of a simpleton at my core. That woman, to me, it seems pretty simple. Either was using a lot of drugs and was freaking out, or at some point over the last few months, she became mentally unstable and had lost her mind. Either way, how do you just release people like that back out into society after she's done what she did?
Well, and I'm not saying these people should all be incarcerated. That's not the issue.
Get them help.
Thank you. Get them into a program, get them someplace where they can get help, and then give them an opportunity to turn their lives around and change their lives. There's a facility, there's a charity here called Sheffield Place. They're the only charity in this town that takes in women who are drug addicts, alcoholics, prostitutes, whatever the case may be, who have children. And they take them in while they're still on drugs if they make commitment to get off. Well, their success ratio with these people, it's a very strict program. Once they're in the program, they stay in it for well over a year, in some cases 2 years or longer. They get them in therapy, they get them jobs, they get them off the medications. When I was asked to come on the board, I asked them, what's the most difficult thing that you have to do here? And they said, when we put somebody back on the street because they start using drug again, which means they say there are rules here and you're going to abide by the rules. But their success ratio is off the charts.
Yeah.
But there's a structure there, Kevin. If there's not a structure and there's not some way to help these people, then it's just a revolving door. You're putting them right back out on the streets again.
So when I was a teenager and then into high school, I had a very, very close friend. I'm not going to mention his name because a lot of people he's from Kansas City. So, and we were really close. He became my freshman roommate at Kansas State. And then he decided college wasn't for him. And he was right. It was not for him. And he went and did his thing. But I never met his mom. He lived with his dad, who at the time didn't work because he had a really bad heart condition. He was raising two boys. The mom was at, they used to say an asylum or a nut house or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew where she was. I mean, I literally never met her. And she was still alive, and I don't think he saw her. And I'm not trying to bring everybody down today. Long story short, later in life, when he was about 40, my friend took his own life. So there clearly were problems with mental illness within that family. Now, he was never institutionalized or anything like that. But if his mom was in a place then, do we even have those now? Are these people that we see that are homeless, how many of them are mentally ill? And what does our healthcare system do about this? Is there any help from Medicare or the government, or should there be? Just what are your thoughts? Because I just feel like there's more crazy people walking around now that need to be somewhere where they're getting help, not jail, but they shouldn't be living under a bridge because that's not real healthy either.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's where you see a lot of them. You see them living under a bridge, and the problem is, there aren't enough facilities, private facilities, charitable facilities, Catholic Charities, Sheffield Place, Cary Hall, which is another one for men who are addicted and veterans. There are not enough of those. Tunnel Towers is which we donate to every month. That is an amazing charity for what they do, because now they're building facilities for homeless veterans. If you've seen these apartment buildings they're putting up there, and I guarantee you there are rules when they come into those facilities. If they're on drugs or and have other issues, they're probably got treatment programs in place for them. But that's what needs to happen. And the people that are, when we're talking about just gangsters and thieves, and people that want to do harm in the community, those people need to go to jail.
Right.
But the people you're talking about, they need somebody to help them. And unfortunately, that's not happening.
So I don't think either one of us is a big government guy. I hate to even ask this question because I don't think the government solves a lot of problems. But of all the money we blow, all the money that gets blown by our federal government, is that something we should be looking at?
So why don't we do this, Kevin? Why don't we look at charities? Let's pick in Kansas City the top 5 charities in this city that help homeless people and people with addictions. So let's look at Benilde Hall. Let's look at Sheffield Place Catholic Charities. Let's look at the things they do and say, if we put that money there, how much more effective would they be? Well, there's a good answer to that question. You can measure their effectiveness. They have to produce reports every year that talk about how many people are staying in the program, recidivism, all the rest of it. We don't do that, okay? We're trying to create a government program. Well, guess what? They're not working, are they?
So I'd take the money from Planned Parenthood and give it to them.
Thank you.
There's all kinds of places.
That might be a much better use.
I'm
Kevin.
taking it from Fauci. I'm no longer going to kill beagles.
Yeah.
In research, I'll take all that money and we'll put it into those things, and maybe we can get some people some help and not have some of these stories are getting worse.
Yeah, and they're going to continue to get worse because the police officers are not meant to be mental health experts. That's not their job. Okay. Their job is to get the bad guys and put them in jail.
And the firefighter EMTs don't have anything on them. They didn't have a knife or anything. They have no way to protect themselves with their bare hands.
And did you see how he was described? He was described as a very gentle man who did this because he wanted to help people. And what did he get for that?
Of course he did. Yeah. All right, Cary, you are awesome. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time today. America's Healthcare Advocate, Saturday mornings right here on KCMO Talk Radio. AmericasHealthcareAdvocate.com to learn more. What do they see if they go to the website?
They'll see all the shows are posted up there. There are 15 podcast platforms and a YouTube platform.
Watch it. You got quite a production. You guys should take a look at Cary's show. It's great. So go to the website and watch the podcast, AmericasHealthcareAdvocate.com. He is Cary Hall. Thank you, Cary. Great to see you today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Uncancelled continues on KCMO Talk Radio.
From Overland Park to Oak Grove, it's Kevin Kietzman Uncancelled on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
I absolutely want to meet Josh Hawley someday and shake his hand, especially for things like introducing the Preventing Elected Leaders from Owning Securities and Investments Act, Senate Bill 58, also known as the Pelosi Act. That makes me laugh every time I say it. And my wife really loved it. She does not think much of Nancy Pelosi, which is kind of cool. But Josh Hawley coming up with Preventing Elected Leaders from Owning Securities and Investments, Pelosi, the Pelosi Act. These are the good things that they're working on. I don't know if they're going to get that passed. You know, that's like asking these people to give themselves term limits. You're going to ask them to vote against themselves making free money or stealing it or having information that they know it's illegal to get inside information, and you cannot convince me otherwise that somebody that's in Congress or in the executive branch or wherever in the government, if you know something is coming down the pike in the government and the sector that it will affect positively, you will buy stocks in that sector, whether it's healthcare or military or retail or any automotive, any business, tech. When you know it's about to happen because you're on the inside, that's insider trading. And they literally could all be locked up for this. And they all know when something's about to happen that is good for a certain sector. And it's both parties. I'm not just picking on Pelosi. But getting them to pass a law to prevent themselves from getting rich is probably not going to happen. Our government was never set up for these people to go there and stay and get rich. It was never set up really for them to live there. It was set up for them to go there from where they're from, serve their few weeks a year, and then go back home. That was it. And it's turned into this crap show that we have and all this money they're making. I say go, Senator Hawley, on that one. All right, let's check in with our buddy Mark. We got some tasty stories here today, Mark. You do not, this is official, you do not have a golf cart in your garage?
No golf cart in my garage. I wish I had one.
Well, there's a couple missing from Minor Park in Kansas City, Missouri. They say they got some video of a couple of dudes driving off in them. How fast can they go?
Hopefully not a guy with a hat and a beard, because otherwise they'd be coming to look for me.
They should catch these people. It says just a few weeks ago they installed GPS on the carts.
That's helpful.
That is helpful. Now, I haven't played Minor Park in a long time, but a couple of years ago I played Swope Park, which is part of Kansas City, Missouri, Parks and Rec. And I think this might have been what got me blocked by Mayor Q. I'm not sure. These things were gas guzzlers that were putting smoke. It was disgusting. Following the cart in front of you, you couldn't even breathe. The exhaust coming out of them. You want to talk about the most anti-liberal green, the planet is our special place thing? It's the golf carts at Kansas City, Missouri golf courses. Nobody has those anymore. Nobody. And they've done nice work at Swope. These are nice golf courses. I'm not making any complaint. They're loud, they rattle, and they burn fuel, and they build smoke into the air, and I wonder if that's what these guys stole. Why would anybody have a gas golf cart?
It seems easy enough that they'd have one that they could just plug in, right?
Plug them in. Plug them in. That's the way to go. Did you see the Shaquille O'Neal news?
Oh, no. Did he?
Not again.
Okay.
No. He did not have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the set. He took a new job. He's the basketball general manager of Sacramento State. So we've seen this, right? Who's Andrew Luck is the general manager of Stanford football.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Steph Curry is the assistant general manager of Davidson basketball, where he played in college. So you're like, Shaq, Sacramento State.
Yeah, that's a little odd.
He's doing it for free. Nothing to it. His friend Mike Bibby is the head coach, and his son Shakir plays there. So what does the general manager do, Mark? You're up on this more than I am.
They're trying to help secure recruits and help with NIL stuff, I believe.
Okay, take stuff off the coach's plate.
Yeah.
Roster management.
Mm-hmm.
So what does the athletic director do?
You know, there's a lot of questions about those. They're getting paid to do a lot of nothing, probably. No, they do stuff, I'm sure.
Try to figure it out, man. There's a lot of people, it sounds like, with a lot of jobs making a lot of money in college athletes these days. I don't think there's any question about it. Yesterday, the Philadelphia Eagles went to the White House. Wasn't much of a show. Saquon Barkley was great. He was with Trump on Sunday, and then he went to the White House. Jalen Hurts, the quarterback, did not go, and at least 12 Eagles did not go. What do you say, Mark Van Sickle, about the 12 Eagles that did not show up at the White House?
I mean, just missing a chance to go to the White House to celebrate with your team. It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, we saw Harrison Butker go with the Chiefs. He probably didn't want to talk to Biden, but he did it. And it just makes, for me as a guy outside looking in, you win the championship, you go meet the president, you go take the tour of the White House.
I agree. And if it wasn't for me, if I'm Jalen Hurts, I can sit in the background, but you get a +1. You get to take somebody. If it's not your wife, if she's not a fan of Trump and says, no, I'll pass, you don't have to make a scene out of anything. But there's somebody in your world that going to the White House would have been a big deal for. This is one of the problems that I have with athletes and celebrities when they do stuff like this. They're so self-absorbed, they don't realize that there is somebody in their life that they can make a real difference in taking them to that. Just do something for somebody else one time. 12 Eagles players skipping out on that thing. And my favorite story, Toby Keith is deceased, but he has a horse running in the Kentucky Derby this week. He has a thoroughbred stables in Oklahoma. Render Judgment is Toby Keith's family's horse running in the Derby. The Vince Show is coming up next. Thanks for listening to Uncancelled on KCMO Talk Radio.